Hello and welcome back to the channel. In today's video I'm going to be sharing with you a requested video of how to draft the front part of this inbuilt corset. So if this is something you like, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button, and let's dive right into today's video. So first, I've gone ahead to mark out all my basic measurements, which includes my shoulder to bust, my shoulder to under bust, and my shoulder to waistline. So my shoulder to bust is 9 inches, shoulder to under bust is 12, shoulder to waistline is 17 inches, and I added 5 inches to my blouse length because this is an inbuilt corset. I went ahead to mark my shoulder divided by 2 plus half. Because this dress has a sleeve, I came down by 1 inch and I connected and marked my shoulder slope. Next, you want to go ahead to find your chest line, which is your armhole. To do that is your bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. So I'll go ahead to mark. So at that point, I'll go ahead to draw out a straight line here that will be serving as my chest line, because that is where my chest line point is. So after I'm done marking out that line, the next step is to go ahead to mark what I have on the shoulder back. And after I'm done marking that, I'll draw out a straight line. Next step, I'll divide my armhole into 2 and I'll mark the midpoint. Come out by ½ inch at this point, and on the chest line I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4. Now I'm going to place my curve drew, connect from the bust point at the chest line to the ½ inch at the armhole and to the upper part. Here I'll mark a basic neckline of 3 by 3 inches and I'll just go ahead to connect. After I'm done doing that, I'll go ahead to mark my dart intake. So for this dart intake, I'll be using my nipple to nipple divided by 2 first to mark out the line before we go ahead to mark the dart intake by both sides. My nipple to nipple is 7 inches divided by 2. I have 3.5. I'll go ahead to connect this all the way to the lower part of the pattern. And after this, I'll mark 1 inch dart intake on both sides. So after I'm done marking that, I'll go ahead to connect. So if you're a plus size or you're a bit busty, you'll be using 1.5 inches and you will mark 1.5 inches on each side. So I'll go ahead and connect from the bust down to the under bust, and I'll also repeat this at the other side of the pattern. So after I'm done connecting, I'm going to go ahead to come up by 1.5 inches. So this 1.5 inches is not a standard. It depends on where you want your cup to start. So for a plus size, you can use 2 inches or 2.5. So I'll go ahead to mark my nipple to nipple back and draw out a straight line. Next, I'll just go ahead to mark a dart intake of 1 inch on both sides of this pattern, and I will reconnect it down to my bust line. So after I'm done connecting, the next step I want to take is to come down by ½ inch from my chest line and go in by ½ inch. From that point, I'll place my ruler and I'm going to connect to my under bust and then go ahead to connect this back at the upper part. Going over to this side, I'll just go ahead to connect my cup to my chest line, mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2 plus half, making it 4 inches, and I'll connect to this end. After I'm done connecting, this is what I have, and I'll go ahead to use my marker to outline. So at this point, if you haven't yet subscribed, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and also leave your comment or question at the comment section. So for this corset is actually a 3-part corset, but I'm just going to leave it as a 2-part corset. You can go ahead to divide yours to have a 3-part corset. So I have videos of how to create a 3-part corset. You can also go ahead to check that out on my channel. So now I'll insert my body measurement. I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4, measure this dart intake here, and I'll replace it, and then go ahead to add my sewing allowance. At the under bust, I'll mark my under bust circumference divided by 4. This dart intake I have here, I'll go ahead to replace it and I'll add my sewing allowance. So for this pattern, if you're making an inbuilt corset with this, because this is what the upper part of this dress is, you don't need too much sewing allowance. So on the waistline, I'll mark my waist circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake, replace, and add ½ inch for sewing allowance. At the hip point, I'll go ahead to mark the hip circumference divided by 4. Go ahead to measure this dart intake, replace, and you'll be adding your sewing allowance together. So after that, I'll just go ahead to reconnect my pattern, starting from the upper part to the lower part of this pattern. So here is what I have, and I'll just go ahead to cut this out. So before going ahead to cut this out, at the lower part I'll be coming up by 2 inches because this dress is actually an inbuilt corset, and I'll go ahead to connect. So for this particular pattern drafting, we are actually working on only the front pattern and also how to cut out the asymmetric or stylish yoke that we have for this pattern. So after this, I'll just go ahead and I will cut this out. So after cutting out my pattern, this is what I have. So we'll still work on the yoke part of this dress. So now, if you don't want to make this an inbuilt corset, you want to make it like a busk, you can just go ahead to trim this off and connect it to the waistline. But for this corset, we have like a slight busk, which is actually on the side of the dress and not on the center. So for this dress is actually an inbuilt corset. So now on the yoke, which is the main focus of this pattern illustration, so I went ahead to place my yoke on another pattern paper, but I folded it into 2. So I'll just go ahead and trace this out. After I'm done tracing out, I'll go ahead to cut out the upper part of this pattern. So I'll just remove the pin and we'll go ahead to draw out the shape that we have on the neckline of this dress. So for the upper part of this dress, here I'm going to come down by 1 inch, which is close to the armhole, and I'm going to draw out this shape. So I'll go ahead to use my pencil and I will draw out the shape I have here. So from the neckline here, I'll go in by ½ inch and I'll go ahead to connect it all the way to the lower part, and then mark ½ inch here and I will extend it out. So for this particular dress, after turning out your yoke at the upper part of this dress because of the design of the neckline, so by this side that we have like an oval shape, you're actually going to just top stitch on it. You're not going to turn it. I don't know if you understand. You just turn the main neckline of this dress and then place the open part together, top stitch, and then you're going to use bead to cover it, or even use an applique to cover that part. So after I'm done cutting out, this is what I have. So with this, we have come to the end of today's tutorial. Thanks.